Yes, Soundgarden. Finally something that's worthy of my fucking wall, right? Grunge is finally represented up there. It only took, what, 26 years? It only took about, my whole entire life. But hey, that's okay. Because today we're going to talk about a new album, and let me tell you something. You could tell that over the past couple of days, I've been just a little bit angry, just a little bit pissed off, because things have really not been going well. Not to mention, I've had to deal with stupid copyright bullshit or whatever happened, but you know what? I'm going to move on from that. I'm going to take out my anger on an album. That's right. That's the way that I get through the day. That's the way that I get through this shit. Instead of going out there and popping some guy in the mouth or joining a UFC community, I review shitty albums and I shit all over them. Oh wait. I'm not going to be angry about this album. It's because this album itself is angry. This is The Sounds of Violence, the 2011 release by the band Onslaught, which is a thrash metal band who is not afraid of their identity. Why are they not afraid of their identity? Because they know. They announce to the world exactly what they are. And they've done that ever since their return to thrash metal dominance a couple of years ago with their album Killing Peace. Now, if you guys are familiar with the stuff that they've done in the late 1980s to the early 1990s, you know that this is a band that's very, very talented. This is a band that has very thought-provoking lyrics, not to mention has exceptionally good musicianship, and they've gone through a little bit of a vocalist struggle throughout their time. However, considering it was about 15 years between one album and the next, whenever Killing Peace was released a couple of years ago, well, the collective fans were a little bit excited to know that Onslaught was back on the attack. But whoa, let me tell you, I think a lot of eardrums probably got shattered on the first listen to that album because that album really dialed up the anger. They've been festering this anger for 15 years, for nearly 2 decades, and they just outpoured it completely on this album, where you would think that maybe, just maybe, with their follow-up, The Sounds of Violence here in 2011, they wouldn't have any left. How could they? I mean, you heard on Killing Peace songs about religion, songs about war, songs about politics. They really covered all of the big topics that you'd really expect, and they did so with a veracity that has not been seen in a long time. Well, what have we seen since then? We've seen thrash really dial it up a whole big level ever since then. Bands such as Exodus and Heathen and Overkill that really just cranked it up to 11 and then pushed some new grounds and decided, you know what? Fuck you. This one goes to 12. This one goes to 69. No, this one goes to 666 because that's exactly what happens on The Sounds of Violence. This is exactly what you would expect. It's an extremely violent album. And if you think for a minute that they weren't able to retain any of that ferociousness, that veracity that you heard on Killing Peace, think again. Because you know what they actually did? It's just what I told you. They cranked it up. They made it even worse. They made it even more insane. Think of it this way. Think of this. You're watching a movie. This is a war movie, one of those war dramas where you're about to see this huge epic battle of just worldly proportions. Consider it like World War II or some big samurai showdown or whatever you want to call it. And you hear that music in the background. But Hollywood fucks it up. Hollywood really fucks it up, ladies and gentlemen, because you know what they do? They make it all kind of fluttery and, you know, like this is a terrible thing. War is not the answer. We're on our moral high horse. Whenever Onslaught just says exactly what you would expect them to say. Fuck you! I'm ready to fucking kill you and slay all of your comrades. That seemed to be the real difference between Onslaught and other thrash bands. It seemed like other thrash bands were willing to raise their sword up in the air and say, hey, we're this band. We're a thrash metal band. Whereas Onslaught's willing to say, hey, we're fucking Onslaught. We're a thrash metal band and we're gonna fucking show it. We're fucking killing you. The Sounds of Violence is exactly what it says that it is. It's an extremely violent album. It has absolutely excellent riffing. Not to mention it has thought-provoking lyrics of hate and violence against some of the same topics that Killing Peace did cover. However, this is done in a completely different way. Why? Because the landscape that is around them has changed. It has shifted. The plains have shifted, so to speak. The winds of change have come, as Wade Barrett would say. But no, that's not enough. That isn't enough. I'll tell you why that's not enough, and that's exactly this. Onslaught, you could basically say, well, they did this. Back whenever they released Killing Peace, it's almost like they were raping thrash metal collectively and then blew a giant load inside of them, exploded and said, yeah, that's how you make thrash metal, you little fucking shit. That's how you do it, old school. And thrash metal has since then really responded with fantastic records. We've seen ever since Killing Peace was released. A real revitalization, not to mention the new wave of American thrash metal, but we've also seen the thrash metal classics from the 1980s either reform or regroup and make fantastic records. 2010 was a fantastic example. Why? Because 2010, there were two types of metal that really needed a revitalization point, a real reinvigoration, and that was thrash metal and black metal. Now, we all know that black metal definitely got their reinvigoration point. Let's face it, there was a new Burzum album, the Watain album was absolutely spellbinding, Enslaved was #1 on my top 25 list. Yeah, I think they got a revitalization. That's the most black metal that's ever been on my top 25 list ever. Period. 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 No more commas, no more ellipses, period. However, with thrash metal got a lot of great albums from a lot of older acts, but there was a lot of newer acts that are really starting to establish themselves, really showing where the future of this genre is going to go, and it's not going to be too bad. It's actually going to be quite good. But let's go through some of the names. We had a new Heathen album, we had a new Overkill album, we had a crushing album by Exodus, and now Onslaught starts off 2011 with that same raw, ferocious tone. We saw that ferocious tone last year whenever Overkill released Ironbound, and it ended up being a fantastic year for thrash metal. So hey, it can only be concluded that this year is going to be just as good, if not better, because, my fucking god. I think with Killing Peace, I really love this album because I heard it so many times that I really understood what they were going for. Not to mention, while I had heard thrash metal really take this little jump peak level all the way up to 12 or 69 or 666, whatever you want to say, I don't know. It's something where they kind of did it in a fresh take, where the violence was real, and they really didn't care to slow down. And they were able to do so with some really good groove in there as well. It's not something where they just thrash their necks off for 2 minutes like a lot of the new wave bands do, and really don't stop to pay simple mind to little things such as tone or such as pacing. This is something where Onslaught was able to do everything collectively very well, and that has spilled over onto the Sounds of Violence. You may think that the second album would be kind of like a sophomore slump because, well, I mean, that's just what happens. You see that in sports, you see it in grades, you see that in anything. You know, sometimes the second year, after you already have that experience, after you've already experienced the hype, after everything has kind of gone to the moon, you really have a lot of expectations that you kind of have to answer to. And more often than not, you fall flat and you fall short. Well, Onslaught sure as fuck didn't do that. Oh no, they just cranked it up. They cranked it up to levels that I don't think I've heard before in quite some time. Overkill's Ironbound was really something that blew my mind, and that's the reason why it was represented so highly on the list last year. But wow, Onslaught's going to be a tough act to follow for thrash bands. I'm going to say that. And it's only fucking January, folks. Well, February 1st now, but whatever. Okay, I'm going to end this video on 2 levels. The first level is going to be quite shocking, but it's going to be just some good old-fashioned truth. Yeah. The second one, however, well, the second one is something that I'm pissed off about, which is basically everything lately. But firstly, as you guys know, I reviewed the Syriana or Sirena album a couple of weeks ago. All of you grammar and pronunciation Nazis need to just shut the fuck up for one reason and one reason alone. And it's because, after careful consideration, I'd rather listen to Saint Anger than that stupid album. Yeah, so suck it. Secondly, Onslaught's The Sound of Violence basically defeats that album the first second, the very first tone that you hear. So, it's null and void. Basically, I'm burying both Saint Anger and the new Syriana, whatever the fuck album, in just one tone, in one note. And here's the thing, though. Here's the thing that really pisses me off. Why in the world did I have to wait a couple of weeks just to hear this record? Why is it that whenever I want to hear an album that's going to actually be good, like this one, I have to actually be patient? Well, I guess with good music comes patience. Because I can guarantee you guys one thing. This album's not one that's going to be showing up in the FYE store. No, it's not going to be there. In fact, it's going to be something that the only way that anybody's going to be able to get it, apart from some pure luck, is probably going to be through a distribution service. If you're lucky enough to find this in a store, then maybe you're at a bigger place. Either that or you just got kind of lucky. But if you find it, I highly recommend that you pick this album up. I mean, really. You really should. There should be absolutely no debate. There should be no thought to this. This is something that should come instantaneously, almost like it was embedded into your memory, which is what I'm essentially trying to do. This is an album that's so good that you should want to buy it. This is an album that's so good you should want to look for it, This is an album that's so good that you should want to kill for it.